So picking up from the last lesson, we're going to continue. And one thing to keep in mind with these configurations is we said the green check mark on this configuration means this is the active. What this also means is that this configuration is up to date. And that means a full data set has been generated of the changes that we made and everything that's affected. Uh, if we make the changes and you see a horizontal line here, that means a data set has not been, or that this configuration has not been updated. I might also see a little saved symbol, like a little disk drive symbol there. That means that this configuration has been marked to be saved or rebuilt every time it's saved. I can also go to this top configuration. I can right click and I can rebuild all the configurations at one time. I can rebuild on save mark for this configuration. Again, that's how you can add a mark to specific configurations. I could come down here and I could add rebuild on save mark to that. So each time I save it, now it's got this icon here. So every time I save this, it's going to be rebuilt. And I can also come up here to the stoplight and I can rebuild there as well. Now, one thing to consider, if you've got a lot of configurations, and again, depending on where you work, you may have a family of parts that may have 18 different configurations under one like host part. And so if I go back here into this top tree item and this rebuild all configurations, I can also put a mark on this. I can add a mark for all configurations. So one thing to consider is, especially if your parts are a little bit complex, is um, if you do a rebuild all configurations, it might take a long time for your computer to go through each one and rebuild that configuration. And typically what I will do when I'm working with configurations is I will add um, basically a rebuild on save for that specific configuration that I'm working on. Then I know that it's just updating that one and it doesn't really take any time at all. And I don't really have to worry about it. All right, let's move along. So let's give ourselves just a little bit more room. I'm going to go in here to machine log. I'm going to right click and I'm sorry. I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to go up here to edit. I'm going to do this a different way this time. I'm going to go copy it, click in here, come back to edit, paste. And so I copied that. Now I'm going to activate this and I'm going to right click and I'm going to rename this tree item. And this one we're going to name machined, comma, short. Now let's highlight forged long and let's copy that. I'm going to go Control C. I'm going to click down here and go Control V. And then I'm going to rename this as forged. Sure you can guess what's coming next. Short. So because I didn't highlight that first and get the green check mark, you can see it's got a horizontal line there, which means it has not been rebuilt. And so I can right click on this and I can either add a save mark. So when I save this, it gets rebuilt, or I can come up to here, I can right click and I can rebuild all configurations. Because everything else was already rebuilt, it just had to rebuild that last one, and now you can see it has a check mark. And so now that I have 4 tree items or more, in the future, what I can do too is I can come up here to this top level on the tree and I can right click and I can reorder. And with tree order, I've got 4 options. I've got numeric, where if the names of my files had numbers in them, it would put them in a numerical order, a sequence. Literal, and it will order them that way. I can do manual, and I can configure, or I can sequence them how I want by dragging and dropping them, and then I can do a history based, and it will order them in a line of um, from the oldest to the newest. So for this, we're going to click on literal. And I'm sorry, I forgot to say literal is alphabetical, not numerical. So double click, make sure your machine short is active. Then we're going to go up here, and with the handle, if I double click on the handle, it's going to show my dimensions out here on the screen. And the one that I want to change is this overall length. And so now if I double click on this overall length, it brings up my heads up display for that dimension, which is 220. I want to change this to 180, but what it also gives me the option of doing is I've got like a mini configuration manager here. And if I click on the down arrow, it asks me just for this configuration, all configurations are specified. And if I click on specify, I want to make this change to the machine short and the forged short. And I'm going to say okay, select them both. Now I'm going to put 180 in here. Green check mark. You can see it made the change. And now I'm going to click OK here. And it made that, it shortened that up. And now you're probably noticing that it doesn't look like anything's changed yet. And if we look here, it's got all horizontal lines still. So it means nothing's been rebuilt. And so I'm going to come up to this one. I'm going to right click. I'm going to rebuild all configurations. And now I can physically see that that handle is shortened. And if we go into the forged short, I can also see that that's short. Forged long, you can see that handle's longer. Machine long, it's still longer. And so what that does is it gives us a lot of flexibility to make changes across all different configurations, because it's very possible in a family of parts that we need to make a change that affects everything, even though there are different configurations, and there are other changes that are going to apply specifically to only one of those configurations. So this has been a really quick, simple introduction to configurations, and some of the other things to consider is like reasons that we would use configurations. There may be requirements for certain applications where we might need something that the base is the same, but it's just a little bit different because one is in a different operating environment. We may create two different configurations, one for machining and one for 3D printing. We may have different product specifications, such as a military version and a civilian version of a product. There may be performance considerations of, maybe two different forms of a product. And so there's, kind of the reasons are endless, but those are just some examples. And then also one thing to remember too is if your parts are complex, or I should say, if they have complex geometry, such as, a lot of sweeps or lofted features, maybe all different kinds of radii on your parts, shells that have different thicknesses, those are a lot more dependent on the resources of a computer to rebuild. And so it's something to consider when you're rebuilding them, because it may take a long time depending on how many configurations you have when it does have that complex geometry. What we did here today is very simple, and so we could have rebuilt 10 or 20 of this and it wouldn't have taken any time at all. And the reason I bring that last point up is because if you're ever in the spot of working on assemblies where we're going to create, we're going to take in multiple parts and assemble them on the screen, is again, that uses even more resources. And so we might create simplified configurations of parts where we remove the fillets, or we do things to make it a simple part geometry where we can use in the assembly, and it gives us everything we need to check in that assembly, such as like fit and clearances and things like that. but it's not going to tax the resources of the system by having a fully detailed part that may not be necessary for that assembly. Let's go ahead and save this part, and this is the file that you will, the part model you will hand in for this class demo.